Hello, I'm Colleen Gallagher, CEO at OnWrd and UpWrd, and you're listening to the Association Insights podcast, where each week we interview association leaders from across the country to hear how they're trying new things, taking big risks, and delivering value for their members. We'll explore the realities of what it means to work in and with associations and bring you the insights and inspiration you need to advance your career and make big changes at your association. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Association Insights podcast. I'm your host, Meghan Henning. Today's episode is very fun for me. I'm joined by someone who recently made the jump from client to colleague, Roger, our newest account director here at OnWrd and UpWrd. Roger brings more than 2 decades of experience in journalism, digital media, corporate communications, public policy, and association leadership. Before joining us, he spent over 7 years at CompTIA, most recently serving as Director of Communications, Corporate Communications. Prior to that, he led communications at the Wireless Infrastructure Association and held editorial leadership roles at the Washington Business Journal, where he helped drive digital growth and built strong relationships with media across the country. In other words, he's seen communications from every angle: reporter, association leader, and now agency partner. So, Roger, welcome, obviously, to OnWrd and UpWrd, but welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
So let's dive into this. You spent years in journalism before moving into association communications. How did being on the reporter side shape the way you think about storytelling and media today?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's really just a matter of what works and what doesn't work. And, the quality of the information or the quality of the story, the quality of the tip, the quality of the lead, that's what's important to people who are in the media who are trying to tell stories. And that's, on the flip side of that, that's what associations are concerned with, because they want to tell their story. They believe in what they're doing, what their members are doing. They want to get that information out there. And I've always, luckily I didn't come from a cops beat or, some other, I didn't work for a small community newspaper. I worked for business journals. So I always had a business background when it came to the reporting that I was doing while I was a reporter, but also when I was an editor. And the idea is just, you want to give your readers news they can use. You want to give them information that has some sort of value to them, whether it's a tip they can act on or a piece of advice they can use. And that's really what reporters are looking for. And that's what we try to tell associations when they're trying to get their story out there. And you've also got to remember that exclusivity is just the name of the game, even in today's crowded marketplace, media marketplace. Giving someone the exclusive story is what really counts.
I love that, because I think that a lot of times, at least when I was working within an association, you would have something that you really would want to tell, right? But I didn't always step back to think, how will this help the reporter? And I think that advice is so key, because you get so excited about working with something or on something that might have taken, 8 months. So you're chomping at the bit, right? To be able to share this with somebody. And I think that you're right. Like, putting it in the package of how does this help you really is probably the secret sauce, maybe that association professionals might not always be thinking of.
Right. And that's why, we want to be proactive and we want to get involved early. So you're not doing research that is of no use. You're all the projects are going to have a useful outcome in the end. And that's really what, that's what having an agency does for an association, is to give that third party, that objective observer advantage. And I just think that's really important to associations these days.
Yeah, I agree. But looking back at your time as an editor and a producer, what do you think most PR professionals still misunderstand about how newsrooms operate?
It's a great question. I haven't, the newsrooms that I worked in and that I grew up in they certainly don't exist anymore. I mean, one of my favorite editors of all times, I mean, he was notorious for throwing a stapler at me when I spelled things wrong. The newsrooms now are, well, they're mostly virtual. So that's an issue, I think, for a lot of us on the outside, just understanding that everybody's working from home and it's a little bit different. But most PR professionals don't really understand the pressure that reporters are under. A lot of people don't understand the deadlines, how they work, whether they have daily deadlines, weekly deadlines. Are they working on large projects? You really just need to have a relationship, maybe not with a specific reporter, but you certainly need to know the publication. And it's difficult when you're working for a national agency and you're pitching folks all over the place. But most newsrooms are under a lot of pressure. The reporters, the producers, the editors, they're just under a lot of pressure. So you really just have to appreciate that. Don't get offended when they don't return your calls right away. Just don't. You've got to have a thick skin, much like a reporter who doesn't get their phone calls returned as quickly as they would like. And I think a lot of PR folks sometimes, and a lot of association leaders, I think sometimes they forget that it's a bottom-up approach when it comes to creating news and creating content. Most of the reporters, or in TV, the producers, are responsible for generating the news, generating the story, and covering the news. So I think it's important just to show the reporters and the producers on the front line a little bit more respect than we normally would feel inclined to do. And it's also important now, and this would not have been the case 10 years ago, but it's important to remember that reporters are brands. I mean, that's how they look at themselves. They've got their brand on social media, their brand speaking engagements, and we can debate whether or not this is good or bad for society, but reporters are the brands, and I think, have to respect that enough. So where at least you're talking to them as a peer and you're not expecting them to, carry your water for you, or vice versa, to be honest.
I think that's such great advice because, when I started out, and I was not a reporter, but there was no social media, so there was no brand. You very much felt that you knew who the beat reporters were and what they covered, and I would say it was easier. It was certainly easier for PR people, and now I think it's not easy for anybody, right? It's not easy for the reporters because they're stretched thin and they might be covering a whole bunch of different things. And as you mentioned, they have a brand. And I do like the suggestion of, who is carrying the water. And that is a really important, I think, piece of advice for everyone listening. I think that's great. So how did your mindset shift when you moved from covering industries to representing them?
I would say the bottom line is a compelling message or story is still a compelling message or story. I mean, if it works, it works. If it's good news, if it's a good story, if you're pitching it for page one, or if your editor wants it on page one, the quality of the story hasn't changed no matter which side of the relationship you're on, whether you're helping the reporter flesh out their story or you're the reporter trying to dig up all the information. I think that's the main thing. And it also is a benefit to me personally is that I was covering businesses and trade groups. As a reporter, I used to rely on trade groups to give me that third-party validation, to provide the research, to provide the objective look at an industry's health or obstacles that are facing the industry. Companies, you would always want to talk to the companies who are on the front lines, but the association could step back and kind of give you that larger, broader, longer term picture. And that always helped the reporter really figure out what the story was that he or she was trying to tell. And it's interesting for me too, is because working with an agency as opposed to being in-house as a comms director at an association, an agency is much more similar to being a reporter than anything else. I mean, I can't imagine there are that many careers that are so lined up in as far as just how you go about your daily activities, because an agency, someone who's on a team at an agency is dealing with multiple clients. They're dealing with multiple industries. They're dealing with different kinds of stories, different kinds of priorities. And that's what reporters are doing too. You know, they're not just talking to you, they're talking to you and a dozen other people. And then they're also working on 2 other stories. Oh, and then they have a research report that's also due in a few weeks. So, I mean, you've got a lot of juggling to do. And I think that's certainly, I sort of forgot how to do that when I was at an association sometimes. But now I'm the muscle memory sort of comes back.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. But I feel like you were still juggling when you were at CompTIA. I mean, you were navigating advocacy and executive visibility, member engagement, and policy communications, often all at once. How did you balance those long-term brand building with the urgency of public policy moments?
Luckily, we always had great leadership at CompTIA, and I do think that comes from the advocacy side, from the public sector side, and from the corporate side as well. The idea is that you have to have a strong foundation, and not just a strong organizational foundation, but the branding, but really when it comes to what I was doing, it's the messaging. Like, what is the core foundational message? What do we stand for? What are we here to do? Who are our members? Who do we represent? What do they need from us? What do we need from the people we're talking to within the administration or within the legislative bodies? Once you have that the solid foundation, and everybody with, no matter what their task is, from the event coordinator to the person producing the videos for the award ceremony, as long as everybody knows exactly what you do and why you're doing it, then every statement and every action and press release or announcement just sort of builds off of that. And it flies in multiple directions. But if you have that solid foundation, so you're not scrambling to figure out who you're answering to. You know exactly who you're answering to, and you got an answer for the question when it comes to, well, why does this matter to me? Why is this important to us? Why should CompTIA care? Why should this association care? Why should our members care? If you can answer those questions, it helps you balance everything, because you don't take your eye off of the ball, so to speak. You just know exactly what your long-term goal is, and everything you do just has to align with that.
Right.
And that's how we did it. And with associations, really where the rubber hit the road, that's a fly-in. I mean, that's when you've got your members, your the government affairs, the advocacy team, the membership team. Everyone is working together, and it just sort of all comes together with the fly-in. And it's really, that's where you know how healthy an organization is, an association is how well they can pull off those fly-ins, I think.
That's such a good point. And I love, hearing that it's about alignment. I think we have a lot of listeners who, sit on the wire of government affairs and communications. So what's one thing you learned about aligning communications with government affairs teams that truly moves the needle? I mean, you mentioned the fly-in, which I, again, think that's, one of the most important things that a lot of associations do. It takes a lot of coordination. And I liked your view that everyone's got to sort of know what the value is in order for that to be achieved.
Government affairs, they do not have an easy job. It's very challenging. They're some of the smartest people I've ever worked with are in government affairs. Some of the most entertaining people too are in government affairs. I think when it comes to communications, the key is to have a consistent drumbeat. Don't just wait around and chase the story, but actually you can try and figure it out on your own. And you can make sure that you're participating in the conversation, you're driving the conversation, you're consistently talking to the media, talking to the public. I mean, it's certainly become a lot easier now with social media, but that consistent drumbeat helps you to make sure that the staffers know where they need to go to get the right information and who they can ask. And that sort of dovetails into B, it's just relationship building. You've got to have solid relationships and supporting the relationships. So the communications team has to have the relationships with the reporters, but then they've also got to help the executives and the government affairs staff to make sure that they've got relationships with the reporters. It seems to be a lost art ever since COVID, but coffees with reporters really go a long ways. It allows you just to know them as a human, and for them, more importantly, to know you as a human, not just as a CEO of an association that represents industry XYZ. It's just about building those relationships. And then also not, a lot of government affairs, just a lot of organizations in general, people don't stop to think about the quality of the statements that they want to make. There's sort of an inside joke that a lot of people in the communications world have. It's just the idea that some statements are edited by committee. It can be, and sometimes it's a necessity, but sometimes it really just, clogs up the mechanism. And once those statements, they don't go to the reporter quick enough, so you get dinged on that. But sometimes they're just so convoluted that they can't even be used. And once a reporter waits around for 2 or 3 statements that aren't print worthy or aren't going to be, used high up in the story, they forget about you because your value is decreased so much. And I would say, finally, and this is what I encourage all association leaders to do, is really understand that information is the currency in town, and to make sure, and it's not just in Washington, it's everywhere. Information is the currency when you're dealing with the media. And if you can become an expert and an available source, you're worth your weight in gold, because you can actually help the reporter become a better reporter. And that's going to serve your needs well in the long run. I would guarantee it will serve your needs in the long run. I mean, when I was a reporter and I used to sit on PR panels, I would always say, the source, the CEO of a company that was at least willing to talk to me and tell me why they had to make some layoffs, I'm going to be fair to them the next time I have to call, if it's even worse news. And I'm also going to be fair to them when it's good news. They secured funding or something like that. If you're just honest to me and honest to the reporter, it all goes back to building that relationship. And you will be well served if you've got a friend, if you've got a reporter in your Rolodex, back in the olden days when we had Rolodexes. A reporter in your Rolodex is definitely very, very valuable.
Yeah. And I love this because you're saying, again, you're helping the reporter. And if you put the time and energy into, helping them and not sort of sending a non-statement that doesn't further anything, that will help you in the end. So I think that is great advice. Now, switching, having all that expertise, you went from being a client of OnWrd and UpWrd to joining the team. So what surprised you most about the shift from in-house association leadership to agency life?
I mean, right off the bat, it was how hard agencies work. It's just there. You don't see it, out of sight, out of mind, right? So if I didn't see you on a call for a week, there's a lot of times that you're like, well, we pay this agency, but I didn't talk to them. So I didn't know exactly all the work that was being put in. And I would every week be reminded of how much work an agency like OnWrd and UpWrd was doing for our association. But It's easy to forget. People do forget. It's what have you done for me lately? So I was certainly surprised when I found out how hard OnWrd and UpWrd works for all of its clients. And it's not just one or two. It's multiple ones that all need special. Not they all deserve special treatment, and somehow through some magical balancing act and some great scheduling platforms, we're able to pull it off and treat every single client like it's the only client on our roster. I'm actually surprised by that every day that I, open up my laptop and just look at how much has been accomplished, in the last 12 hours from our team. It's just amazing to me. And I just didn't, I don't think I gave not just OnWrd and UpWrd, but any agency. Right. I don't think I gave any agency the credit for the amount of work that they did for an association. And I certainly know that members probably didn't. And and full disclosure, I've hired and fired other agencies, and there's something, when you've got a good agency, and you should know quickly if you've got a bad agency.
Yes, I would agree with all of that, because I came from in-house and had never worked at an agency. And I remember when Colleen and I were thinking of putting this together, my main thought has always been, I just really do not want to be bored. I am a very easily bored person. I need to do different things on different days. And I will definitely say that working in an agency would not leave anyone bored, because you bounce around like a pinball, from client to client, and thinking different strategies for different people. So I have definitely felt that way even 5 years in. I'm still always amazed when you fill out your timesheet where you're like, wow, this is all the things that we got done. So I agree with that. And I definitely agree. So having sat on the client side, what do you think makes an agency relationship truly valuable versus transactional?
Well, so I'll focus on the valuable side, because the transactional side is when you know that it's not going to work for you. Mm-hmm. I just don't, it's just not valuable. The return on investment's just not there. What I think is valuable about a good agency is that third party validation. I know we tell our associations, you are the third party validator. You're going to be able to give that, the 50,000 foot view of the industry and help people understand it better. But they're also in the weeds. They are in that particular industry. They need that third party of somebody who understands the media landscape, but also understands just what someone who doesn't live and breathe that industry thinks. So I really think that you have to rely and expect or demand even that you get that third party validation when it comes to your messaging, your branding, your outreach, your strategy even. And I think that also you should demand that agencies bring fresh perspectives. Mm-hmm. They don't say yes to everything you ask. They push back if it's not good for you in the long run, and they collaborate on ideas together. Some of the most rewarding days on the job are when you're just brainstorming with your clients about, what's happening in the industry, what can we do, what should we do, how can we be a leader in this particular space, how can we develop a better message to go along with this event or this piece of programming. That collaborative environment is what makes it profitable for both sides. And it's just that you don't have to like everyone, but you certainly need to have healthy relationships with the clients. And I think one way you get that is just being an integrated team, not having them, being a part of the roster. Mm-hmm. You're not an add-on. You're not an afterthought. You're there from beginning to end when it comes to anything that's involving communications, and especially outward facing communication, but to some degree, even inside. I know that there are internal communications. I know that there's a lot of places that third party, that third set of eyes would really help.
Mm-hmm. I think that's all like very true. In addition to that, what advice would you give communication leaders about how to get the most out of their agency partners?
I guess realistic expectations, and this is going to sound like I'm starting it as a cop out, but there's a joke in public relations that every CEO wants to be on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. That's fine. That's a realistic expectation, to be honest. If you have a good PR firm and you have a story that is compelling, that is a realistic expectation. But you should really understand, and you should do this before you hire the agency, you need to understand what they can do and what they cannot do. There are some agencies out there, there are just some people out there that'll say they can do anything you ask. And they can't. And, just like any relationship in life, you just should not go through with it if the person is just telling you what you want to hear.
Right.
It serves no one well. So I think realistic expectations are important, especially for folks on the association side. So you know what you're getting and you're not paying for something that you're never going to get. That makes no sense. And also understanding what your agency does well, which allows you to leverage that and really use it as the tool that it's supposed to be. Your agency is, it's not just a line item on your budget. It should be a tool in your toolbox, something that you can use to help you achieve your goals, whether that's from a financial standpoint or a membership standpoint or just an exposure standpoint. You want to make sure that you understand how the tool works in order for you to use it the most effectively.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, to that end, from your vantage point, reporter, association leader, and now agency partner, what separates associations that consistently break through from those that struggle to get attention?
It's hard. It's hard to get attention in today's world. I mean, ask any teenager. It's very hard to get attention. I think it all goes back to the quality of information and quality and the value of the information that you have. And I'm trying hard not to avoid the term storytelling, but it's really information. It's not just telling the story. It's the data, it's the research, it's the insights, it's the opinions, it's the thought leadership. It's what your association can bring to them. And that's going to allow you to break through and get the attention that you want and that you need. And then it also goes back to that foundation. You've got to have a clear vision of what your mission is, who you serve, why you serve them. And then you need to have a desire to be part of the conversation. You can't shy away from the conversation and then throw your hands up and complain why they didn't ask me.
Right.
It's because you nobody knew that you even had a voice. You have to have the voice so somebody knows that they can come and ask you a question. And it also falls back to when you're overly selfish, it's going to hurt you in the long run. If it's not a two-way relationship with the media, it's not going to help you in the long run. Because if you're just being selfish, not sharing information, not really helping them do their job, and it can be as simple as not following the directions when they ask you to do something, not meeting a deadline. I mean, not meeting a deadline for a reporter is just tantamount to kicking their puppy. Yeah. It's just not good. Yeah. You've got to respect the deadlines. And I do think you just want to have a voice in the conversation.
I think that's so true because I know that there are clients, and I've been one of them, where they want a voice, but they don't want to really speak, or they don't have anything worthwhile to say. And I think now being on the agency side, that really is so clear to me, whereas maybe on the inside of the association, that wasn't as clear. But in order to be somebody that a reporter wants to reach out to, over time with that relationship building, you have to have something to say. You can't be afraid to say something. I mean, there are times, yes, you can be afraid. But again, I think you go back to what you have been saying, which is this trust building throughout the whole process. So based on that, what's your philosophy on building trust in this sort of noisy communications environment?
I mean, the main thing is offering to help and being a resource in addition to being a source. But I think it also goes back to something we talked about earlier, and it's just that strong messaging foundation. You've got to have that. You've got to do the hard work building that strong foundation so you can offer to help, and you know when to offer to help and how to offer to help. And you've got to if you've got that strong foundation, you know that being a resource as opposed to just a source is going to help you in the long run. You are showing that you are the go-to resource for all things in this particular industry. And that means a lot to a reporter, and that means a lot to their readers or their viewers in the long run. So they will trust you on a continual basis.
I think that's great. And I think that's totally right. Last serious question. What's your favorite thing about supporting associations from the agency side?
So most people who work in trade associations do so because they care about their members or they care about their industries. And our clients are just really good people who are doing good work for their members. I mean, luckily our members are also in industries that are, I think every one of them to a T is serving the greater good. And I love helping people achieve their goals. And it's often indirect because, unless we have a specific project, we don't interact with the members. Conferences we do sometimes through audits, but, mostly we're doing our work with the employees of the association. And I love hearing from them about what their members are doing. And it goes back to why I got into reporting in the first place. It's just that I love learning something new every day. Mm-hmm. It's sometimes it may not be very valuable information, but I do try to learn something new every day. And it's what, it keeps life interesting. It keeps, the boredom away. Mm-hmm. And it keeps your mind strong, and that's all you've got to when it comes to helping your clients.
Yep, I agree. I love learning something new, and sometimes I really like learning something arcane, right? That I would never in a million years have been a part of. And then all of a sudden we had a client a while ago who dealt with trucking, and truck parking was this huge thing. And then I drove to Indiana to visit my nephew. And every time I saw all these trucks on the side of the road, I was thinking, oh my God, I know all about this. And I have driven by trucks most of my life and never thought anything. So I do love that you get to just delve into some industries, and even industries that you might think, oh, I have nothing in common with this. I think it's fun to be able to sort of roll up your sleeves and find something that you find interesting about them, because there's definitely interesting things in all of them, even ones that you might think like don't relate to you or you might find not as, entertaining, but it is all there. So I do like that. I would agree with you on that. So now we have a lightning round, and it's just so our listeners can get to know you. They're not questions that are supposed to cause you any stress. You're just supposed to answer them. So I'll start with the first one. What's one small thing that's been bringing you joy lately?
Well, playing tennis with my daughter.
Nice. What are you currently obsessed with? Book, show, hobby, idea?
Oh, I'm obsessed with so many things. Recently I've begun rewatching all of the old Jacques Cousteau films.
Oh, okay, that's very interesting.
It was a simpler time, and it's when documentaries were a little more thoughtful.
Yeah. If you weren't in communications, what would you be doing?
The only other job I've ever had was in a restaurant. So maybe that.
Okay.
Because I was a paper boy, and then I would, if I had an ideal, I'd like to be a librarian.
Me too. That's exactly what I would like to do. I'd like to be anywhere surrounded by books.
Yeah, and I thought a bookstore owner would be cool.
Love that. Yes. Yeah.
I'd go with the librarian.
What's one media habit you think more association leaders should adopt?
Writing.
Yeah.
I think they should write more, whether it's journaling or op-ed pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I just think they should write more because we need more strong writers. And I think if you're an association.
Yes. Agree.
It can't hurt.
No, it cannot. And agree. And last but not least, finish this sentence. When you see me looking at my phone, it probably means I'm
working.
Okay, that's good. That's good. I'm usually playing Scrabble with a friend. That's usually what I do. It drives me bonkers. And the person I play with is so much better than I am. So I'm always hoping that this is going to up my vocabulary game or something like that. But
my daughters get mad at me because I don't play Wordle with them. So maybe it's something I'll take up.
Roger, thank you so much. This was great. I know that all of your expertise and insights are going to be so wonderful for our listeners. So I appreciate you taking the time to have a conversation.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure being here.
That's a wrap for today's episode. The Association Insights Podcast, previously known as the Association 100 Podcast, is a production of OnWrd and UpWrd Marketing and Communications, where our mission is to make associations and nonprofits the go-to source in their industries through earned media and thought leadership. This podcast is an extension of our newsletter, a bi-monthly collection of best practices, top trends, helpful ideas, and smart strategies delivered straight to your inbox. Have you undertaken a big change at your association? Or do you have some words and wisdom from the trenches of association life? We want to hear from you, and so do our listeners. Drop us a note at info@onwardupwrd.com. That's info@onwrdupwrd.com. Be sure to subscribe, give us a 5-star review, and share with your friends and colleagues. We're available anywhere podcasts are found. Come back next week for more association insights and inspiration. Thanks for tuning in.